everything together and make it nice and pretty for you. It'll be in your inbox before you know it. And lastly, we do want to hear from you today. So you are more than welcome to drop any comments, questions, things that you want to pick Justin's brain about in the Q&A section. Like I said, my colleagues and I will be monitoring that for you. And then depending on how many questions we receive, as we know you'll all be very engaged, if we can't get to them all today, we'll try to get to you individually sometime this week as well. All right, everybody. Justin, how you feeling?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Natalie, and everyone else for being here.
So good. So good. All right, y'all. Let's get started. Let's engage these audiences.
All right. So I will share and make sure everything looks okay. Okay. All right.
And while Justin's doing that, oh, okay, good.
Yeah, go ahead, Ashley. Good. You're good. Go.
I'm going to go on mute. Let me know if you have any questions.
All right. Okay. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. So I'm really excited to share with you a lot here about iClicker events and how that can work for all of your events. So I'm going to share my whole screen with you here so you can see my clicker toolbar in the corner. Can I just make sure everyone's seeing that okay? It's dancing up here in the top left. Good to go.
Yep, we can see it.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. And please do ask questions, interact as you can. I am going to have you use iClicker events too while we're doing this. So let's go ahead and set that up and give everyone a chance to settle in with that. So here we go. So here is your code, and hopefully you can see that too. And I'll put this in the chat window for you as well. But you can, if you're using a phone, you can scan the QR code now, or you can put this in. And I'm not sure actually if everyone will see this on the chat, but I'll try. But here is the code that we're looking for. So we're going to go to join.iclicker.com/EWAS. So you're going to type that. It's just showed up in the chat for me at least. So you can click on that. You can scan the QR code, go to your own browser and type that in. But I already see 19 of you have joined, which is fantastic. So just go ahead and take a moment to do that. And we'll bring it up again a little bit later if anyone comes in a little bit late. But so as you're seeing, the first thing that's fun with iClicker events, you can do this online, right? You don't have to do this in person. So you can do this online, in person, hybrid, whatever you want. It all works really, really well. And I'll talk more about the functionality as we go. But today really is going to talk about iClicker events in terms of engagement, in terms of getting audiences engaged in meetings, workshops, conferences, whatever you might have, in addition to the classroom. So, kind of think about what you're interested in. And if you have some things you're particularly interested in now, applications for this, go ahead and type that in the Q&A or in the chat and just tell me, hey, I want to use this for blank, fill in the blank. So go ahead and leave those comments for me now too. I'd be happy to help you out with that as well. Right, but I'll give you all a second here to join again. Right. Okay. And again, I'll bring this back up in a little bit, but otherwise we'll go ahead and get started. So thanks again for everyone for being here. So my name is Justin Shaffer. I am a teaching professor here at the Colorado School of Mines, just west of Denver. If you've ever seen Coors Light commercials, that's where we're at in Golden, Colorado. I'm also our Associate Dean of Undergraduate Studies, starting January this year, where I do more kind of broad things on campus with curriculum. One of those being actually getting an iClicker license. So I was able to get that this year. It's secured for our campus this fall. So, and I've been using iClicker for, about 12 years now, at 3 different campuses, 4 different campuses. So it's an excellent tool to use for the classroom, but it's been really awesome to see iClicker events come online, because now you can use that for non-classroom purposes. And we'll get into all the weeds about why you might want to do that coming up here in the next 40 minutes, 35 to 40 minutes or so. All right, so I'm going to close the join window now. I'll put that's still in the chat, and I'll bring it back up again a little bit if we need to. But please do feel free to ask questions as we're going. I'll try to keep an eye on the Q&A as we're going as well, and answer any questions as we're going. All right. So for our outcomes though, first, so that by the end of this session, you'll be able to explain the benefits of using iClicker events in your events for engaging participants, evaluate iClicker events question types, and consider if they'd be useful for your events. And finally, explore ways to use iClicker events data after an event has concluded. So even though this is a totally anonymous platform for polling, you can still get the data on the back end and use that for a variety of reasons. And we'll talk about what some of those use cases are in a little bit. All right, first though, I have this rather dumb disclaimer, if you will. So forgive me, but I feel the need to say it because you're going to see a lot of cartoons in this presentation here today. So I like to use AI a lot, especially for making cartoons. And however, as I said, this came from this organic brain for this presentation. Okay, so let's start off with one of those cartoons and a first clicker question. So what you're going to do now in iClicker, so on the window, wherever you logged in, you're going to now see a picture of my screen on your screen, and you're going to get to type. So you have 140 characters to answer this question. So what made the best meeting you've ever been in so special? And I am being serious here. So go ahead, type in some thoughts. So you have 140 characters here. You can say whatever you like. It is anonymous. So please PG rated for today. I'm okay with, other, language elsewhere, but let's keep it PG for right now. And type whatever you want again, totally anonymous. I'll bring that code back up again in case anyone just joined us. And tell us a little bit about, think about that best meeting you've ever been in. What made it so special? Right, and we can see it going live. So notice that the timer is counting up. So we've been running the poll for about 54 seconds. We got 21 responses. You can keep track by doing this of how many people have answered, how many people have participated. Right, give you a little more time here to brainstorm. Right, well, I'm going to start showing you results here, but you can still take some time to enter your answer. So let's take a look at what some of you are saying. All right. So now we can show you the results here. And I notice I still have the poll running. So I notice the time's still going up. I'll stop this for a second. You'll see what happens. But all right, we got some ideas about collaboration, feeling connected, relevant and practical, which is also a great thing. More collaboration, concise. Okay, good. Short and to the point. Yeah, efficiency. That can help with meetings for sure. Especially if those of you who are coming here from academia know sometimes department meetings, faculty just like to talk. So we want to make sure to keep it short to the point. Great pacing, not overwhelming, enthusiastic, right? Openness of discussions. You have dynamic speakers. So had purpose and accomplished your goals. I think I saw someone got married in a meeting. All right, that's great. Congratulations. Okay, you got to participate as well in the presentation as the participants in the audience. Those are all wonderful things. So perfect. So with all that in mind then, right, and let's just show you here now that it's stopped, you should have seen it on your device too. Now on your screen, you should have saw my results. So you have control over that setting. So, you can say, oh, I want my participants to see the results. Sometimes I don't. So as I do this workshop with you, I'm going to kind of go back and forth a little bit from like kind of telling you about the workshop, but also kind of taking a step back, getting a little more big picture and tell you how the system works as we go. All right. So perfect. So we got some great ideas. Okay, so we heard collaboration, conciseness, engagement, enthusiasm, marriage. All these things are great to make meetings great. So let me tell you a little bit about why you can use iClicker events to make your events better. So again, those of you familiar with iClicker know this came out of academics for classroom purposes, right? So you can use iClicker for all of your classroom reasons, for polling your students, for getting student knowledge and checking their answers, for attendance, active learning in the classroom. Same kind of things apply to the non-classroom audience for iClicker events. So it first facilitates engagement and participation, right? So you're going to be able to get your audience members engaged. Sure, you can always have your audience and your participants talk to each other or raise their hands or maybe fill out a note card or something. But doing something like this, it's a really low tech, well, it's not really high tech, but low tech, somewhere in the middle, but it's a low stakes, easy way to use your devices, your phone, your website, your browser, whatever you have, to get everyone in the room to answering questions and participating. Okay, they let you know as the facilitator what your participants know at any given time. Okay, so with this in mind, right, you can ask them bunch of different questions about X. And we're going to do some real questions and do some more practice as we work through this session. But it gives you a chance to know what they know, but also it gives your participants a way to assess their understanding in real time. So let's say you're doing some kind of HR training and you're doing like a review quiz on an employee handbook or for new employee orientation. You can ask some questions and participants will get a chance to answer those questions and see if they know them or not, right? So those are great ways to not only for you as the facilitator to know what your participants know, but for your audience to check their understanding too. As I mentioned, works great both in person and online. Super easy to use both ways. I've used this for all over the states. I've done workshops with icebreaker events while I'm here in Colorado. I've done it with audience in Saudi Arabia. Works great. Works great in person. Just the last couple of weeks here at Mines, we've started doing these what I've called pathways exploration talks. So these are for our first year students. We have over 700 students in the room listening to talks from these inspiring speakers using TED style talks. And I've had using iClicker with over 700, no problems whatsoever. So you can use these with big audience, small audiences, online, in person, anything in between. All right, and then also what makes it so great is, as you saw my toolbar here, it's just floating around. Whatever's on my screen becomes the question. So I don't have to go to a website and make separate questions ahead of time. I can use a PowerPoint, which I'm using now, as you can see. You can use, OneNote, you can use Google Docs, you can play a YouTube video, ask questions about that, like whatever you want, whatever's on your screen. There's no kind of double preparation required. So it's a super easy tool to get started with for asking questions and doing polling in any type of system. This reference here in the bottom, this is again for more academics, but it's a great reference for a summary of literature and peer-reviewed papers on the efficacy of iClickers in the classroom and personal response systems in general. It's a little bit dated now, but it's still a wonderful resource. So if you want to check that out for more info, I'd highly encourage you to do that. All right. So with all that in mind, let's talk about engaging your audience now, right? So now we know a little bit about the platform, how it works, what you can do with it. But all right, you've been in meetings, they're not fun sometimes. People don't want to be into it, whatever is going on for whatever reason. So can you engage those hard to reach audiences? And that can be especially troubling as a facilitator or presenter. You're walking in maybe to a different campus, to a different organization. You've never met those people before, and you got to read the room really quick and figure out, well, how can I kind of break in and really get them motivated to want to participate. I was just at a university a few weeks ago doing I did an all-day workshop. That was a long day, believe me. But that first 30 minutes, it's always okay, who's the personalities in the room? Who's more outspoken? Who's going to just sit there with their arms crossed, right? You gotta figure it out. But there's fortunately some tips and tricks. One is just to have people talk to each other and say hi. Right. If you're walking into a room where you don't know everyone, you might assume that they know everybody, but they might not. So the first thing you can do is just say, hey, go ahead and take 2 minutes and here's some prompts, right? I always have people say, what's your name? Where are you from? What's your role in this organization or university? And then I kind of change the last one up, but typically it's, what's your favorite show on Netflix currently? What's the best podcast you've listened to lately? Stuff like that, something pop culture to help get people involved. And that usually, kind of wakes people up, gets them a little bit enlightened, enlivened, however you say that, and, get people excited to talk to each other. Do some kind of icebreaker too. So icebreakers can be kind of sometimes, but they can be really fun. So if you find one that you found that really works sometimes, I do it, right? So my icebreaker today was, what's the best meeting ever? What made it so much fun? It's not the most exciting icebreaker, but it doesn't have to be super hokey about, what do you like more, rats or mice? That'd be a weird one, I think, but you know what I mean, right? You can do something silly, you can do something kind of related to the topic, but do something to kind of get people warmed up again as well. Play the interest of your audience or the location where you're at. So what I like to do is when I go to different universities to do workshops, if I get in the day before, for example, I'll go if I'm walking around, I like to walk around the town or the city or wherever I'm at and try to take a picture of something iconic about that place. And then I find a way to put that into my workshop at the very beginning. So it kind of shows that connection, so I do a lot of workshops on course design and for higher education for STEM audiences. And I always try to try to take a picture of something that kind of goes on forever, so, I was in Ohio recently and I was at, I took a picture of Lake Erie and it just kind of goes on forever. So I prompt a question, so what do you think about with course design? Here's this picture, like just goes on forever. The possibilities are endless. So if you can try to make a personal connection to your audience, that can be really helpful too. Think about the local sports teams, current events, things like that can be really, really interesting and useful. Mix things up too, right? So just because you have an audience and you're trying to achieve a specific goal for a certain topic, it doesn't mean you can't mix things up a lot, right? So, play a video, have them talk to each other, get the whiteboards out, draw on the whiteboards, you talk for a little bit, do icebreakers, right? There's all sorts of things you can do, just like you would if you were teaching a class. Changing the strategies can be really, really useful. Add polling, so duh. So we're going to talk about that a lot today in this session and why that might be useful. But if all this fails, just bring some cupcakes. That usually helps too. Red velvet, I find, are the best scenario. So again, a lot of things you can do to try to get people engaged, but ultimately it comes down to you and your personality, right? These are some tips I have that I find work for me. You're going to figure out for yourself as a facilitator, as a presenter, as a teacher, the strategies that work for you. So make sure you do tailor approaches to what you want to do and what works for your personality and style. Because if you try to force something, it might not come off right and it kind of doesn't feel good for you or them. So again, play to your strengths and tailor the strategies to what you're comfortable with. All right, so let's talk about icebreaker events specifically now and the questions you can write. Okay, so you got a lot of question types. So when you think about polling, you might think about, well, multiple choice. Sure, that's totally an option. However, there's a lot of other options too, including multiple choice. You also have multiple answer. You have numeric, where you type in numbers. You have target, where you touch the screen. That's my favorite one, as well as short answer, which we already did today. So all of these question types come built in. And if you'd like to take a look at my toolbar again, so we drop down here. There they are. So those are our 5 question types: multiple choice, short answer, numeric, target, multiple answer. So we're going to do all of these as practice to show you how they work. We already did a short answer, so we might skip that one later. But again, I'm going to kind of walk you through the different question types, give you a chance to actually do them as if you are a participant. And then you're going to let me know what you think of those, how'd those go. So, all right. So with that in mind, let's get rolling. I'm keeping my eye on the Q&A in the chat. Let me know if things are coming up. I'm happy to stop anytime and keep going. All right, so let's go with our first question here, multiple choice. So this is a question where it's kind of silly. I made it up, but thinking about like a work scenario for a business and what's your priority for the coming year. So I'm going to hit play to start that question. And now you're going to, again, see on your screen, my screen, all you have to do this time is touch one of the buttons. So you have 5 letters, and I'll bring that join code up again in case you still need it. So you got 5 buttons on your screen. Go ahead and touch one of those letters, A, B, C, D. Notice there's an E. There's always an E. So one or more of you may be a joker and pick E. That's okay. It happens all the time, but that's the default. You get 5 option choices. So on your question, which I have 4, if you don't have 5, your participants will still see an E, and it's just up to you to have fun with if someone puts an E or not. So, but that's how multiple choice can work. So go ahead. I see a lot. We have 30 people clicking in already. That's fantastic. So go ahead, keep going. Okay, give you another 10 seconds or so. Again, all you gotta do is click the button. There's nothing else to do here. Just touch one of your 5 letters, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right. So let's take a look at those results. So here we all right, we got 1 joker. I love it. Okay. So so 20 of you said, 50% of you said B, whatever that one was, growing our customer base. But notice it's still going live. So go ahead, change your answer right now. See what happens. Watch what happens to the bars. Just go ahead, start touching to see. So this is kind of fun where you can, if you leave it open live, people, oh, you love E now. So right, so you kind of change it up as you're going in the moment. This is especially fun in class. If you're doing this for a class where there's a correct answer and students see, oh, everyone picks C, then they start, C gets really big. But in this case, we can also stop it, and now we're fixed. And so now on your screen, you should see these answers too. All right. If for some reason you wanted to say there was a correct answer here, you can do that just by clicking on it. And now it's graded, right? It's graded. In this case, there's no real grade, but you can say, oh, actually B is the right answer for this question. So you can do that in a question live. You just touch the one you want. You can even make more than one correct if there for some reason to do that. All right, so that's a little bit funsies there with multiple choice. A couple other things with the toolbar before we get going further. There's this more button, so you can do the timer count up and also confidence. So notice when I ran the poll, the time counts up from 0. I think that's best because then it gives people time to answer. There's no rush. But if you wanted to, you could change it to count down. So maybe, okay, maybe you're doing like a quiz, like a fun quiz in a work meeting or something, or in a class. So now you count down from 1 minute and you have to, or 10 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever you want. And that can kind of force some pressure. There's also confidence, which can also be a nice little wrinkle. So we're going to actually do this one again. So I'm going to have you click in the same question. But now, after you answer, it's going to ask you how confident are you in your answer. So this is a nice little wrinkle you can do because you might, maybe you think B is what we should do, but you're not thrilled by B. Maybe you actually think there is an E that's not on the list. So you can report your confidence level in questions too. So go ahead again, same question there. Now it's going to pop up and say, how confident are you in your answer? And I'll show you what that looks like. So take another few seconds to answer that. I'll just stop it here for time's sake and show you what it looks like now. So now, when it wants to go, there we go. All right, so now, right, so there's our answers, but down below here, if you notice, it says 62% are confident or very confident, and we can see some more detail. So there we go. So 21% of you not confident, all the way down to very confident. So it's a nice little wrinkle. Again, you can add to your questions if you want to add that little nuance when you're answering. So I'll turn that off for the rest. But notice you can change that per question. So some you can turn it on, some you can turn it off. All right. So, all right, keep an eye on that Q&A. I think we are doing great. Let me know if things are coming up. All right, now another option for multiple choice for events is voting. Right? So maybe you're doing a department meeting or a faculty meeting or your organizational votes on something, and you can do multiple choice for that. So I'm not going to have you click in here because you know how multiple choice works, but this is great. So in my department, we were just voting on a new department head the other day, and I was able to get this all set up, ready to go to use iClicker for multiple choice, yes or no on the candidate for our new department head. We were going to do it live anonymous voting. However, we talked too long and we didn't get to vote. So we're going to do that next week instead. But right, this is a cool way to do voting for issues if you want it to be totally anonymous. Totally is anonymous. Promise. No, totally anonymous. All right. So another thing now, multiple answers. Let's try this one out. So here's multiple answers. So again, you're going to get this on your screen. And now you get to pick more than one. All right, so this is one saying, you say you're in an organization, you're searching for a new president. Here at Mines, we're searching for a new provost now. So, what are the personality traits we should look for? So now you can pick more than one. So go ahead and touch as many letters as you want, and then you'll hit the send answer button. So again, type as many as you need, then hit send answer, and you'll be good to go. And so it looks very similar to multiple choice, right? You have the 5 circles. But in this case, you have to hit that send answer button. And this is something your participants, you got to kind of train them in, is that if you don't hit send answer, your answer doesn't actually go through. So make sure you type the buttons and then you hit send answer. All right, and we're getting a lot of you clicking in, which is fantastic. Give you another few seconds to try that out. Your screen should automatically refresh every time I ask a question. If it doesn't for some reason, just reload your browser window and you'll be good to go. And again, please do ask away in that Q&A window as we are going. And it looks like maybe a few of you joined a little bit later, so I'll put that join code in the chat one more time if you want to play along as we keep going forward. All right, so here we go. So here is multiple answer now. Here's what this looks like. So this tells us how many people answered each option. So 73% of you think empathetic is important. 70% think compassionate, but only 35% for charismatic. But you can also hit the responses button here and see the combinations, and this can be really useful too. So, a few of you, 8 of you said that all 5, right? And then you can kind of see the distributions for the others. What's nice too is this little arrow here. So we can hit up and down. So now we sort. So here's for all 5 answers. And then, right, so that was the most popular, 22%, 11%, 8%. So you can use that to quickly show the results in a histogram frequency format. All right, so that's multiple answer. That's how that can work. All right, next, Numeric. All right, so let's try this out. So now you get to type in a number. So this is one I actually did in these big pathways class with, 700 students at a time. I asked them, how confident are you in your major as a brand new student? You've been in college for 2 weeks. So go ahead, you can try this now. This is just, now you get a number, you get eight characters. So you can type in up to 8 numbers right here. You can use negative signs, you can use decimal points, but go ahead and type in those numbers. And we'll take a look what that looks like. You might want to think back to your own college major and think, was that actually a good choice or not? And you can decide that, or you can just goof around here and type in some numbers and see what happens. And again, you can stop this whenever you want. You can show the results live. You can do all sorts of stuff, but I'll give you another few seconds there to get clicked in. Right, and I'll stop you there and take a peek. All right, so now we have all the numbers, right? Minus 99.9. All right, great, right? So we can get all that. And again, if for some reason you can say, well, actually, you all should be super confident 100 is the right answer, you can just click on it and make that the correct answer for whatever reason. But again, so you get all these numeric answers. And I'm going to talk at the end about, well, maybe you actually want these data to use for something. You can easily download it when you're done, and I'll give you some ideas about how you might want to play with that on the back end of a workshop or a seminar or a meeting or whatever it might be. All right, cool. So that's numeric. All right, now target. All right, so this is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, because you now get to touch your screen. So let's say you're doing planning for a department retreat. Where should we go? Let's assume budget is not an issue in this case. So now what you're going to do is touch the screen wherever you want. You're going to see a little dot come up on your screen, and then you hit send answer. So this is fantastic, again, to be totally open-ended on how things are. For question types, because you might otherwise be restricted, right? You might have to draw, a line, draw 5 lines on there. One's A, B, C, D, E, and then do multiple choice. But in this case, it's completely open-ended. People can answer whatever they want. Again, whatever's on your screen. It can be a slide from PowerPoint. It could be a Google Doc. It could be, sometimes I'll play a YouTube video in class and then pause it and say, hey, where on this video is this event happening? They touch on the screen for the video still shot. It could be whatever you want, which makes these, again, super open-ended and super flexible to let your creativity shine with target type questions. And what you'll see here in a moment is we get like a heat map. We get to see all the dots, what you said for the retreat. So, right, so those of you, East Coast, Midwest, starting to get a little cooler, maybe, I know it's still warm some days. It's actually a little bit cooler here today in Colorado. So maybe you want some sunnier climes. We'll see what you said for your retreat. So let's take a look. All right, so we got folks from all over here. We want to go to Maine. We want to go to Cali. We want to go to Idaho. I love it. A lot in Hawaii. And then let's just say you're doing this live with your staff or something, and you can kind of pull an Oprah out and say, you know what? We're going to Hawaii, and kind of highlight it and turn it all green, and everyone cheers and look under their seats and there's nothing there, but you get a plane ticket someday, right? So you could do something like this and have some fun with target questions to get some really open-ended data from your participants. Another thing you can do with target, which I like to do this a lot, and I'm going to actually ask you this one because I'm curious. You can get feelings or attitudes, right? So go ahead. In this case, I got 18 emojis for you to pick from. And the question is, how are you feeling about this webinar so far? So I'm kind of, a little nervous to see what you're going to say, but go ahead, touch the emoji that aligns with you the most right now for how you're feeling about this webinar, and iClick Your Events. But you can do something like this for anything, right? For me, for teaching, I use this on the first day of class. How are you feeling about being in this class? You on the last day of class, how'd you feel how this class went? The day after the big exam, how'd that exam go? How'd you feel about that exam? So it's a cool way to collect some attitudinal or feeling data, as opposed to a more traditional way, which might be, A through E, strongly agree to strongly disagree, or, 0 to 10, 0 means this is terrible, 10 is the best. So, doing something like this, a little bit more fun, and meets people with their, in our current emoji culture, which, that if any of you have iPhones, you got that new 18 update, you get the now you can put emojis on your text and stuff, and the little thumbs up is colored. So they added some new features. Thank you, Apple. So let's take a look at what you're saying here, right? All right, so we got some happy star faces. All right, and great. Okay, goofy one, short. We got some hmms. I totally get it, right? How is this going to work for me? That's what we want you to think about with this workshop. You know, a couple math, that's cool. No PO, no puke faces. I call that a win. So, all right, great. So again, you can do stuff like this to have a little fun with target questions. All right, so now short answer. So we won't do this just because we've already done short answer. But now what you would do is, again, you can actually, no, let's do this because I do want to show you one more feature. So go one more time here, short answer. So now I want you to type in a single word to describe this webinar so far. And I'm doing this because I want to show you another feature. So go ahead and type in a single word. Again, you have 140 characters, but I want to limit you to one word. All right, so try one word as your best. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, short answer question, remember, while this is totally anonymous, you can say whatever you want. So you might want to tell your audience, you know, right, try to keep it, you know, family friendly. When I do this with my students, I tell them, you know, my eyes are on you. I know, you know, because in the classroom version of iClicker, it is matched to the student ID. So I'll know who says that, you know. So if you want to say something a little cute, I can go after the fact and figure out who it was. In this case, though, we have no clue. In the data, it just says participant 1, participant 2. You have a filter, Natalie. Do you personally have the filter? iClicker has the filter. I'm not sure. You want to tell us about that?
iClicker has a filter on, you know, the big ones.
Okay.
The big obvious ones.
Okay.
You know, I've got a 12-year-old, so I can tell you, I don't know what to censor now for you because it's a different language. So we don't necessarily know those ones, but the big ones, if you're having a corporate event, the big ones are taken care of.
That is good to know. It makes me feel a little more comfortable. But right, I have a 13-year-old boy in 8th grade, and yeah, you're right. The language is so different nowadays, and they find their ways around it. But let's take a look at what you're saying here, right? So we got our words right here, and then you can look at them this way again, right? We can sort them as we did before. Thank you for the interesting and informative comments. Wonderful. I love that one. Speedy, cool. All right, I'm an engineer. I pride myself on efficiency. I like that. All right, but I hope you're using Speedy in a positive way though. But we can also do a word cloud, right? So you can turn it this way as well. And I did this last week with 700 students, and it was a hot mess, to be honest, with so many words on the screen, but it was kind of fun to see all the things they said. And I'm like turning my head and trying to figure out what they're all saying. But so you can present things in word cloud. So that's why I wanted to do this one more time. All right, so that's short answer and how we can do that. All right, also great for Q&A. Okay, so I'm not going to open this one up, but what you can do is, let's say you finished a presentation and you want to do Q&A, or during a presentation, just leave it open the whole time, right? People can ask questions. The one, I'll call it a downside, is you can only ask a single question. If you ask more than one, it will overwrite the past one. So you do have to kind of, if you're going to use this for Q&A, like for an extended period of time, you just want to tell your audience, right, you really only have one question that's going to show up for me. If you ask, it will let you do more than one, but it will erase their previous one. So this is a feature I've requested from the iClicker team. So please do that, because then you'll be able to ask multiple questions and have those all go through. And that could make a Q&A feature more useful. But in the meantime though, right, you can totally do this for Q&A as another option. All right, so that's it for the different question types. I'm going to close my toolbar here. You can click on the cloud to make it a little smaller, get out of the way. And I'm going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes, and we'll have plenty of time for chatting. But right, so after the event's over, right, what do you do with all the data? So when you're done with the event, you're able to go to iclicker.com and grab it all. So you can go to that website and you download the spreadsheet, and it will, again, it calls everyone participant 1, participant 2, participant 3, up to however many you have. So with that in mind, you're able to get all the data. It will tell you who answered which question. So if you wanted to look for like completion for some reason and see that someone answered them all, you can do that. But then you get the question by question data. So for those multiple choice questions that we did, you'll get a list of all the participants 1 through X, and then it will tell you what each person said, A, B, C, D, E. For the multiple answer, it will tell you what answers they said. For numeric, the number. For the short answer, will tell you whatever they typed in. For target, though, it just says responded. It doesn't actually show you where on the map they touched or where on the screen they touched, but it just lets you know that they did it. But you can do a lot of cool stuff with this. So even though it's anonymous, there's some great ways to do this. So first, let's get our robot friends involved, right? Let's ask AI to help. So let's say you want those short answer results, and maybe you asked for comments on an initiative, or you asked for questions, or you asked for, again, the words for how this workshop was going. You can download that Excel file, upload it to ChatGPT or whichever one you like, and say, hey, can you summarize the data in column A of this spreadsheet and tell me what the major most common themes were? And it will say, sure, of course. And then you do that and it will give you an output. Make sure you say thank you, because you want to be kind to the robots before they take over. Maybe they'll be generous to you when we're all in the matrix. But right, so you want to be using AI to help you with data, especially large sets of data. You know, for us today, you know, we had about 35 answers for that question. I can probably do that manually. But when I got 700 students and doing that at once, or maybe 1,000 participants in a workshop, have AI help you out there too. You can also match participant data to sort and cluster. So let's say you're doing a workshop or a work meeting, and you wanted to break it down by division, you know, by which sector of the company they work in. So the first question you would ask is, you know, well, which part of the org are you in? A, B, C, D, or if there's more than that, do a multiple answer, A through Z, right? And they type that in, and then all the follow-up questions, whatever they are, and then at the end, you can go back and you'll see, oh, well, participant 1, they're from sales. Participant 2, they're from marketing. Participant 3 is from R&D. And then you can group all the R&D people together, all the sales people together, all the management people together, and look at their answers as little clusters. So you can kind of sort your data and group your data with that after the fact too, which can help if you need to parse your data out. Also, you can gamify, right? So let's say you're doing a morning session and then you have a lunch break and then there's some afternoon stuff and maybe you have some award or ceremony or some sort. So in the beginning, again, you can maybe group people by teams or sectors or work, you know, whatever division they're in the company, whatever department they're in. And then you can gamify this. Maybe you have a trivia contest. Maybe you do a little game or something. And then you can, again, parse your data by group. And you can say, oh, you know what? Looks like sales got the most points on this 10-question trivia set. And now they get a pizza party if they're in kindergarten, you know, whatever it might be, right? So you do something like that and you can turn it into a game. The one thing I'll say is for all this, you do have to end the event to access the data. So once your session's over, you hit end event, then you go to iClicker.com immediately and download all the data, which you can then play with. So those are some big ideas. Again, we got to practice using iClicker events. We got to think about why would we use it. We talked a little bit about how to get engagement during your meetings. And, you know, with all that, I'm going to stop here, and we got, again, plenty of time for questions and chatter. But please do let me know if I can help you out. Here's my contact information. I do this work also on the side, my own business, Recombinant Education. So I do higher education, professional development for faculty in STEM specifically, but I'm wide open to any field. So if you enjoyed this and you have interest, please do reach out. And I also do want to plug my book here at the bottom. I have a book coming out what's called high structured course design. I have a big section on clickers in there and how to use them for engagement of your audience. So that's why I mentioned that there. But please do let me know if you ever want to chat. I'm always happy to and connect with me. Otherwise, I will stick around as long as we can and continue the conversation. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Justin. Looks like we have one question in the Q&A. Is there an option for ranking statement questions?
Yeah, so Jamie, that's a great question. So ranking is not one of the built-in question types, right? So notice it's not there. However, if you do short answer, you can do it. So what you can do is you can have, let's say, even if we go back here. So if we go back to that one on, yeah, this one, right? So let's say this one, multiple choice, right? So let's say, okay, you can ask your audience to know which is the number one, pick one, or you can say, if you do this as short answer, well, what's the rank order of these priorities? And people can type in B, A, C, D, D, C, B, A, you know, B, C, D, whatever it is, right? So they can rank them. So even though there's no ranking question type, you can easily do it with short answer. You can also do matching with short answers. So if you had a column of something with the letters and then another column on the right, people could rearrange the letters top to bottom to match up what they have on the right, that text. So you can also do matching, even though that's not a question type here. So yeah, you can get a little creative there with question types and kind of breaking beyond those current 5 options. So Tammy says, how do you get an audience to actually talk if you use this tool? Great. So that's a great question too. So right, so what I do when I use things like events, and today, right, we didn't seem to have the chat kind of working as I might think sometimes, because if you have online, you have the chat going, and then you have, you know, I respond to the chat with you while we're talking, kind of interrupting me, right? So if I'm doing this in person though, as I said, one of the tips I gave was mix it up, right? So I'll do a clicker events question, then I'll talk a little bit. I'll have another activity where people talk to each other. But what's great is you can use the data to follow up on stuff, right? So again, let's go back to, you know, the question like, this one here, right? So our priorities. So let's say it's kind of split. So let's say it's kind of split between A and B. At that point, you can say, okay, everybody, take 2 minutes, talk to who's next to you and debate why A, why B, right? And then you can bring people out to talk and raise their hands and talk more, right? So you can use the data that you get in the moment to change the direction of your presentation or workshop. And that's super important for teaching, especially when you're trying to measure understanding, but it's super important for facilitation too, because people might bring up new ideas and they might answer things that you're not aware of or you're not prepared for. And then okay, well, let's talk about it, right? But again, mix things up and plan to weave in the events polling with other types of activities, other types of discussions, individual work time, group work time, talking to each other, sharing with the big group, whatever it might be. So, but again, using the data can be a way to springboard that discussion between participants. Great question. Yeah, Tammy has a hand raised too. So Tammy, I'm not sure if you're able to turn your mic on if you want to, if that was your question in the chat, but I'm happy to answer more too.
Justin, we had, while Tammy maybe puts it in the Q&A, we had somebody who asked earlier. I had 2 things. One of them was, what's up with these images? Why is the text messed up and why are the fingers messed up? And I was like, I know why, but I thought, Justin, maybe for those who came in, you would want to share that. Why?
So, yeah, I haven't delved into the deep CS algorithms behind why this actually happens. I've read a couple quick blog posts about what's going on, but apparently, so first of all, these are all AI images, right? I use ChatGPT for all these, but right, it actually doesn't read the text verbatim and put it in the image. It creates the image based on the text you give it. So that's why the wording is sometimes goofy and spelling is weird. It does have trouble, like his hand is melting, right? So it does have trouble with fingers. It's only in his face too, right? It's only going to get better. But when you ask it to make cartoons specifically, it goofs, which I love. That's why I use them, because I think they're just so silly in a lot of ways. I do this when I teach too. I do it for everything. So that's why they look the way they do. So, but Natalie, if you know more about the technical reasons why it can't spell and stuff, let me know.
It's AI. I'd also say I'd be really careful about asking ChatGPT to do your math, because it's worse at it than I am. So that's interesting. The other people wanted to know is they were asking about price. And so I was telling them, okay, like the most your students should pay is $16.99 if they buy it right from Macmillan.com, which is what we recommend if, there's no bookstore deal. Or it's included with Achieve. So if you're using Achieve, iClicker is included. You go to the gradebook and you're able to turn it on there. And then so kind of people run the gamut in there. Justin, you have a site license on your campus. Can you talk about what that means for you and your students?
Yeah, and and any of you that, this workshop I did was a little twisted in terms of the events focus, right? I do similar workshops intended for the classroom audience and student teaching. So if you want to talk more about that, please do let me know. Because I've primarily used this in the classroom for 12 years, and events has only come online for about the last year or so, which I've been using it for non-classroom purposes, but it's great to have both tools. But yeah, for those of you interested in the pricing and the licenses and things, so I did work, and Sherry, this goes to your question too about efficacy to share with your leadership. But we had students using iClicker here for years, ever since I've been here and longer. I've been here 7 years now at Mines. And students were paying a ton, whatever word you want to use. They were paying quite a bit for iClickers. So I worked with my iClicker rep, Brendan Bruth, great guy, you might know him, and he helped us get a license put together, and I brought it to my leadership, and they said, well, that's great, but we don't have any money. So I kind of did the, figurative hat in my hand, went around campus and ponied up some funds for the first year. We got it funded. Talking to your question, Sherry, about efficacy, I now have data that shows we've more than doubled our iClicker usage in one semester compared to the prior year. So now that we have an iClicker license, it's free for everyone to use, and so the adoption is becoming more widespread. So being able to report data on usage is one thing, as showing efficacy and effectiveness of a platform like this. And so again, we've more than doubled in one semester compared to the prior year, which is awesome, and it's only growing. I've been personally doing trainings to help people get up online, up front and able to use it. But what's so great about it is, again, students don't have to pay, so they just log in, just kind of like what you did today. They just join. But in the student case, they will log in with an account, and so their Clicker account is tied to their maybe campus ID, so that way you can give them grades and things and attendance points or whatever you might do. But because it's free like this for our students now, it's super easy to use, it's super easy to roll out, and we also have the events license. So I have faculty telling me now, oh, you mean when I go to a seminar at another university, I can use iClicker events for my seminar to add engagement? I said, absolutely, right? And like I mentioned, department meetings too, right? We're trying to vote with department meetings using this. So we did this for faculty senate meetings, like for Q&A. You can do it for whatever. So having a site license can be really powerful. And thanks, Katie, for saying that. You get, now with your site license, you get events on top of the regular classroom iClicker. So I like to think of it as iClicker for the classroom, and then there's iClicker events, but now you get both. And and the other cool thing is your students can use it too, right? So I have undergraduate student government wanting to use it for their meetings. So as long as you have a campus email address, you can use it as a facilitator or as a participant for a class. But like for me, right, I'm running this for you now. None of you are at Minds, but so you can use it with the world. It doesn't matter who the participants are for an events. So it's a really great thing, and the cost savings for a campus are tremendous, I will tell you that. So if you're able to negotiate a license, they are great. And
Thank
Katie,
you. That was
sharing that too about
more
Katie's
than I could ask for.
Yeah, good. And Katie's telling us about how to get access to events. So definitely grab that link there.
Yeah, take a look in the chat. And if you're a corporate person who's on here, who you're like, college was a long time ago for me, I am not thinking about that. We have special relationships with our corporate customers. We have all kinds of different companies who use iClicker for all kinds of things. And so I dropped an email address in the chat where you can get some more information from our special corporate liaison. Isn't that fancy? And then actually we have a whole iClicker, iClicker.com/work. And that's really about iClicker in the corporate environment because we know that your needs are different. So, yeah.
But I will say, even though needs might be different. Yeah, sorry, now I just say, even though the needs might be different for corporate versus academics, there's so much overlap, and I've been able to kind of seamlessly transition from using events for the classroom to using events at my university, and then using events for my business as well. So even though in my business I'm engaging academia and higher ed people, it's still a different use case and a different spin, but the skill set, the tool is totally applicable, and the toolbar is basically it is the same across the board. So you can kind of think about using what I showed you today in a variety of contexts, whether that's for academic, industry, or government, anywhere in between.
You taught me something today, Justin.
Oh, yeah?
Which is, you could just ask your first question and say, what's your name?
Oh, sure.
And then extract the data, and you know how everybody answered, and it's no longer anonymous. Like,
do that.
I hadn't played with it enough to make that connection. Then I went, ooh, so thank you for that. So yeah, the great thing about events is there's no onboarding. And if you don't care about a grade book for people, you just want to know what they did, you can make it that way. Somebody in the chat is asking who to contact to schedule an appointment to create an iClicker room. So if you're really interested in learning more about iClicker, number one, we're going to send out a bunch of stuff after our talk today. So we're going to send a recording of Justin's amazing presentation. We'll send out a copy of the slides, and we'll also be sending out a certificate. At that same time, we're going to send out, hey, you want to schedule an iClicker training. And these iClicker trainings are one-on-one, so you can show up and you can say, hey, I went to Justin's amazing webinar. I want to get started with iClicker events. And they're going to be able to know exactly what you want and get you started in that way. And then I have somebody else asking, good to know, we can buy a site license for this program. Thanks. Yeah, site licenses are great because it just smooths out the whole experience for everybody. And I don't know about you, but we're all using so many tools now, but the smoother I can onboard with one more, the easier.
Yep. Yeah, and speaking of the anonymous thing too, those of you that do want to use this for the classroom, there is another feature in the toolbar now under more that says anonymous. So if you're in the class and you want to ask a question that's maybe a little more sensitive about a certain feeling or attitude towards something, you can hit the anonymous button. It turns the whole toolbar black. And then the answers for that question will not be tied to the student's ID. So you can use iClickers in the class live again to kind of collect some information on a more sensitive topic, make it totally anonymous, and then it really show the data. Then you got a really cool class discussion that's based on anonymous student thoughts. So that's another nice feature. Now that's not in here because events is designed to be anonymous. But as Natalie said, you could have question one be, what's your name? And then you can go and tie everyone's answers to that if you wanted to for some reason. So.
Awesome. If you have any lingering questions, please put them in the chat. We're in our last couple minutes. If you like content like this, just know we're always having webinars with folks like Justin. Justin is a part of our peer consultant group, and something I used to teach. And so when I came to Macmillan, I was like, ooh, I'm going to see how they make the sausage. And I found out we're actually making ice cream. It's really good stuff. I'm very, very pleased with all the ingredients I'm finding. And one of the things I like the best is that you don't have a corporate person stand in front of you and say, this is how we think you should use this tool. We rely on people like Justin who are out in the field, doing the real work day in and day out, interacting with huge audiences and getting really great results. So I'm so appreciative of Justin. Yeah, does anyone have any more questions?
I'll say too,
You covered it so well.
The tech support from iClicker is phenomenal. You know, I'm kind of our point person on campus for iClicker. Yeah, I tell people, if you got any issues, let me know, and then I'll do my best to answer it. Just because as I'm rolling this out, I feel responsible, so I want to be involved with any issues. There's been a couple times people have asked me questions I can't answer. I email our iClicker tech rep. His name's Colin Williams. Usually within a few hours, he gets back to us and with a solution. So really responsive, super helpful. It handshakes with all your, if you're doing for classrooms, it handshakes with all your LMSs, so Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, you name it. IT folks are able to bring it online. And yeah, the one thing though, gotta have good Wi-Fi. So as long as you have good Wi-Fi in a room, you're in good shape.
Yeah, and the average student, I think, is now bringing 5 Wi-Fi enabled items into every classroom, because it's like, it's a watch, they've got their smart glasses on, they've got a laptop, they've got a tablet, they've got their phone. Yep. And so if you've got a classroom with 30 students, it's actually 150 Wi-Fi connections that they're trying to make. So no wonder it's such a thing we have to figure out. Yep. But it does seem to be getting better with each year. So all right, well, I think we've answered all the questions today. I think we had a great time, and I'm super grateful to you, Justin, and everyone who came. So I think we can go ahead and here we go. Yay. Right. Thank you, Sherry. All right.
Thank you all. Take care.
All right. Thanks, everybody.